It's funny how a lot of my gaming memories start with, oh, I saw it in Nintendo Power. And that's because it happened a lot. I had a subscription to Nintendo Power. It cost me $15. I had to save up, and it took me a month to save up $15 as a kid and get that subscription. But before that, the one issue that I realized I wanted that subscription was this issue right here. A friend had brought it to school. Probably wasn't allowed to do that, but he brought it to school anyway. And I got to look through it. And one of the games in there, I was like, holy crap, I've got to play this. Now, of course, I was already familiar with Mega Man, had rented that, and loved Mega Man. But Gremlins 2 was in this magazine. It's the first time I saw Gremlins 2. It's the first time I even realized they had a Gremlins 2 game out. And it was out already. So I was like immediately like, I gotta play that game, right? Because I was a huge Gremlins fan. Well, I wouldn't call myself a huge Gremlins fan. I really liked the movies. Not like I do now where I'm obsessed about them. But Gremlins 2 is still kind of new and I really liked the movie. So luckily this friend of mine lived right across the street from my grandmother. And this was Friday night, so I asked him if I could borrow it. So he actually agreed. He agreed to let me borrow the magazine. So I took it home, and that night I convinced my grandmother that's actually where we had the NES. I didn't have one at my house. It was at my grandmother's house so all the kids could play it. We got to rent a game that night, and I was like, well, Nintendo Power says the Gremlins 2 is pretty awesome. We should go rent that. And so we went and rented Gremlins 2. So that night, it was awesome. It was Friday night. I had the game, and I actually had a Nintendo Power to play the game. I could go through the secrets, and I had maps and stuff for it, which wasn't something I was able to do before. And it was awesome. I mean, just the game itself is awesome. Gremlins 2 is just a fun game, and you don't have to be into the Gremlins franchise or even like the movie to enjoy the game. It helps, but it's not necessary. It stands on its own 2 feet as just a fun game on the system. But I was loving this thing. I loved the fact that it did kind of keep you in suspense to a degree. Because, I mean, if you watch the movie, especially when I watched the movie, I'm like, just get to the Gremlins. At least back then I was. So you have to, obviously, the Mogwai, they have to get wet, multiply, and then eat after midnight and hatch and make cocoons and then hatch, and then they're Gremlins. It builds up that suspense, waiting for those Gremlins to come out. The game kind of does that too. And it really does work to build up that suspense, because I remember playing like the very first few levels and just being like, where's the Gremlins? Where's the Gremlins? Because at the beginning of the game, you're fighting tomatoes and rats and spiders, and I mean, yeah, sure, they're referenced at least the tomatoes are referenced in the movie. When they're in the lab, they're bouncing those tomatoes up and down that they're able to not like get squished. A lot of people miss that. But, and yeah, don't get me started on those spiders. Spiders that shoot stuff at you. No, who would want to deal with that in an office building? And plus, whenever you do kill them, they turn into more spiders. One giant spider turns into 2 little smaller spiders and they come after you? I don't think so. No, I'm not only just quitting that job and moving out of that office building, I'm nuking it from orbit just to make sure, because you never know. But anyway, the game itself really left you in that sense of suspense. At least it did for me. So the first few stages, you're just fighting generic stuff, rats, bats, spiders, tomatoes. But then you see a shadow, and I believe it's like on stage 2, 3. You see the shadow of a gremlin. And I'm like, holy crap, there's the gremlin. And And then all of a sudden, the next stage, boom, you actually see the gremlins, you fight them, which was cool. And it was actually really cool that they did a variety of gremlins, kind of like in the movie. Different shapes, sizes, doing different things. They did a really good job of making you feel like you were actually playing the movie itself. And it had awesome cutscenes too, which always helps. The graphics, amazing, really good, especially on the end boss. I mean, the end spider gremlin, the graphics on that, the sprites, freaking awesome. Just Mohawk in general, when he's coming after you with the machine gun in one of the boss fights. Really awesome sprite work on this game. The music in this game, amazing. But it's Sunsoft. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, look at the Batman game on NES. The soundtrack on that, it's amazing. Sunsoft makes great, amazing music. The graphics, the music, the gameplay. It was very hard at first, even with the Nintendo Power, because it was an overhead game, and I wasn't quite used to that. I was only playing side-scrollers at the time, and it took me a little bit of getting used to it. The game's not hard. It's just that it takes a lot of practice in terms of the platforming, especially when you get to some of the later stages, and there's conveyor belts and spikes everywhere, and endless pits everywhere you go. It kind of makes you wonder who designed this office building. Very, very, very hazardous, actually. Clamp, I don't know what he was thinking. I need to go to the copier. Let me just jump over these spikes in this bottomless pit while I'm at it. So yeah, I don't know what they were thinking designing this office building, but it is infested with gremlins, and you're Gizmo, and it's your job to do away with them. Gremlins on the NES, man, it's up there for me in terms of my top NES games. I would definitely put it in my top 10. It's fun. You don't have to be into the movie or the franchise to get enjoyment out of it. And to this very day, I can put this thing in and no death run it. It's not difficult. You just got, as long as you get some practice at it, it's not a difficult game at all. It's fun, and I never get bored with it. So Gremlins 2, go check out Gremlins 2. You won't be disappointed. So that night, that Friday night, not only did it kindle my love for the game Gremlins 2, but it also kindled my love for Nintendo Power, because at that point, I knew I had to get a subscription. And if I had never gotten a subscription to Nintendo Power, my gaming memories and nostalgia now would be completely different, because a lot of the things that I found out about and enjoy playing to this very day, I got a love for by seeing it Nintendo Power first. So that night, that Friday night, was a very pivotal moment in my gaming history.